Metal Gear Solid, memes, genes, and legacy? Inheriting the mimetic information from those who came before you is a part of life. We naturally absorb the knowledge of the generations who came before us, sorting through what we wish to keep and what we wish to discard. This information may come from the general culture of the time, family members, or from those we look up to. By choosing the specific information and memes we wish to retain, we create a version of ourselves that we present to the world, be it consciously or subconsciously. Through this, we can inherit or create a legacy that can have lasting ramifications, not only on our own lives, but also on the world around us. With this in mind, the idea of legacy being carried through the Metal Gear Solid universe can be examined, from the somewhat obvious comparisons between Solid Snake and Big Boss, to the possible theory of an indirect inheritance of Big Boss's legacy by Raiden. With the release of all canonical entries in the series as one collection, excluding the debate over the viability of Portable Ops' canon and non-canon status, the name chosen to bundle all these games together was Legacy. While it is easy to assume that this refers to the fact that the Metal Gear Solid series carries such a legacy within the gaming world, and that it is being used in the literal definition, i.e. something left or handed down by a predecessor, it is much more interesting to dissect this theme through in-game examples, rather than simply reaffirming the obvious cultural impact on gaming that the series has left. This time let's have a look at the idea of inheriting a direct legacy from a father figure, and what the ramifications are of such an event occurring, be it acceptance or rejection. Solid Snake is the cloned son of Big Boss, the greatest soldier of the 20th century, created as a backup plan in case things went awry. He was also trained to be an improvement on the man who came before. He was genetically predisposed for war, his skills honed from a very young age. This is a man who had no family, but was raised by many people. Every moment in his life up to his showdown with Big Boss in Zanzibar Land was carefully orchestrated for him. The first time he knew any sort of freedom was in Alaska, but he found himself dragged back into the field during the events of Shadow Moses. After that, he took it upon himself to fight back against the systems that had created him, and had a role in orchestrating the world around him. This, for one purpose.
Building the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.
Meanwhile, Big Boss was a man who went down a different path, spurred by his mission to kill his mentor, the boss. Faced by unspoken betrayal by those around him, he slowly grew more and more bitter at the world. Even after joining and helping form the Patriots, he ended up rejecting those involved, creating several paramilitary organisations and rising to the world stage via different influences over the years. He did not want his legacy to be continued. Being sterile meant that he had some security in this, but the fact that he was then cloned not once but 3 times was something that didn't exactly make him happy, to say the least. Regardless, there was some point in time when he and Solid Snake served together, with Big Boss as the commanding officer, and there must have been something that he admired in his proverbial son, even if it wasn't quite the father-son relationship most would think of.
I've never thought of you as a son, but I've always respected you as a soldier and as a man.
The weight of Big Boss's abilities, along with his sins, were things that wore heavily on Solid Snake's shoulders. Big Boss had caused atrocities, employed the use of child soldiers, attempted to create an anarcho-capitalist system with war as the decider for profit margin, as well as to keep providing him with an individual purpose. Solid Snake did not want to follow in these footsteps. He tells Big Boss, "I'm not like you, I love life," and then attempts to isolate himself from the system's flaw. Kojima himself has made comparisons to Dr. Frankenstein's creature with Solid Snake. His outwardly cold actions towards people who he doesn't know or trust, coupled with the methodology behind his birth, makes this an easy comparison to make. But what it also does is allow us to apply the creature in the novel, by Mary Shelley, to Solid Snake. In the novel, the creature was rejected the moment it was given life. Despite being adored before then, it had a thirst for knowledge, wanting to learn more about the world around it. Multiple times it attempts to reach out to the world, but was rejected due to its appearance. In the end, it decided that it needed solitude and solace, but also needed a break from the shackles of its creator's legacy, and thus ended up killing Dr. Frankenstein after a long manhunt. Sounds familiar? Solid Snake's mission, like Big Boss's before him, was to kill the man that was the foundation of his being. Whilst we can assume that Snake was not entirely aware of his position as a clone of Big Boss at the time of Zanzibar Land, he had been trained and taken orders directly from him in the not-too-distant past. By killing Big Boss, so to speak, he inherited the same burden and potential guilt as Big Boss inherited from killing the boss all those years ago. What Snake does next is 2 stages of rejection of the legacy thrust onto his shoulders. First, he rejects everything that Big Boss gave him. His ability to fight, his usefulness as a soldier, his camaraderie. He leaves Foxhound, goes to live alone in Alaska, and attempts to live out in cold isolation. After the events of Metal Gear Solid, he reaches a realization about himself. He's a good soldier. Not only that, but he cannot deny the fact that he enjoys some elements of the job.
I only felt truly alive when I was staring death in the face. I don't know. Maybe it's written into my genes.
This realization is the true moment that Solid Snake rejects the legacy built behind him. He decides to join forces with Otacon, a man with his own father's sins to bear, and make something good of the world to undo the mistakes of the past, one by one, creating philanthropy for that very purpose. Solid Snake is the person who is faced with the world collapsing around him, and chooses to try and hold it up, even if the strain destroys his body in the process. Big Boss is the person who, faced with the same situation, laughs and joins in the destruction, gaining control over it all and orchestrating the situation. This is the rejection of everything he was made to be. Everything that he was perceived to be, which, ironically enough, seems to fall within the will of the man himself.
Forget about us. Live for yourself.
Holding on to the legacy of those who came before you can be difficult, be it wanting to live up to it, or finding such things a terrifying possibility for you yourself to face in the future. In the end, we are able to take control of some aspects of our lives, and ensure that the path we walk down is what we want to walk down. What we want to leave behind for others who may have to endure that legacy. By doing so, we break away from the sins of our fathers, mothers, family, and whoever else may wish to thrust it upon us.
Find something to believe in, and find it for yourself. And when you do, pass it on to the future.
Believe in what?
That's your problem.